This is a Hot Pie Original. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the DNP-CD Sports Podcast presented by OddsShark. I am Chad Fisher alongside my co-host, Tony Farmer. Tony, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing awesome today, Chad. How are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm great, man. I'm super excited because we got an awesome interview lined up. We've got Jesse Sapolu, four-time Super Bowl champion. He played on some of the best teams in NFL history. He played on a lot of teams that you and I grew up watching.
Yeah.
I loved watching those 49er teams back in the day. Those are some of my earliest football memories, some of my earliest NFL memories especially. And can't wait to pick his brain and talk to him about some of those teams and get hopefully some behind-the-scenes information.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you grew up watching football like we did in the 80s and 90s, you know who Jesse Sapolu is. The guy is a legend, and It's going to be a fun day today.
Yeah, for sure. But before we get to that, we want to tell all the people about OddsShark, Tony.
That's right. OddsShark is your source for the latest odds from leading authorities, expert editorial content, the hottest sports news, and detailed matchup picks. Looking for statistics and trends for an upcoming game? OddsShark has you covered, and it is free. In-depth expert analysis, odds, and trends to help you make the sharp game day picks. They've got decades of stats in their database, and their insiders give you takes so hot they sizzle. Mm-hmm. They're your one-stop shop for all your odds info on sports and pop culture events.
Yeah, so whether you want to get a better understanding of the odds and the math behind the numbers, how the line is set, why the lines move during the week on the NFL odds list, OddsShark will give you all the tools you need. And like we said, it's absolutely free. They are a proven industry powerhouse. OddsShark has info from around the globe, giving you the chance to access the best sports odds on the planet. Whether you want to check out tonight's football odds, this week's hockey or basketball trends, or anything in between, head on over to OddsShark and start thinking like a shark today. Go-to resource for us. If you're going to be betting, you definitely got to check out OddsShark. And so speaking of that, we're going to get to our betting segment of the show today.
That's right, man. The NFL draft just wrapped up, so lots of prop betting was going on. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, as well, brother. Same here. And our betting segment is presented by OddsShark.
Yeah, Tony. Chad, Thursday was crazy with all the odds changing throughout the day, and OddsShark did a great job of updating the odds on that number 3 pick. So coming into the day, people were believing the hype about Mac Jones being the 49ers pick. He was the favorite.
Yeah.
It was like minus 150. I saw minus 180 at one point.
Oh, wow.
And then as the mock draft started coming out, remember Benjamin Albright from episode 2?
Yeah.
He talked about how, he wasn't sure. Some people were saying it could be Mac Jones, but a lot of people were saying it wasn't Mac Jones.
You made a little money off that, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, and it was on our Twitter at DNP-CD Sports.
Yeah,
that was on our Twitter.
Yeah.
We said Trey Lance plus 250. And the reason I did that is because Benjamin Albright's mock draft had Trey Lance at 3. So, and a couple other people that I trust as well had him at 3. So I hit that. And then as soon as I hit that, you saw the odds start to shift. And then Trey Lance actually was the betting favorite by the time the draft started.
Oh, wow.
And so it was kind of fun to watch that. And then of course, after Lance went, the big question was, where does Mac Jones go? Where does Justin Fields go? And to see Fields go to Chicago, what do you think about that match?
I couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe that he slid so far, man, because I'm a Michigan fan and I watched that dude, kick our ass and kick the rest of the Big Ten's ass. And I thought maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's going to be like a really good quarterback. He's kind of a dick. When you watch him, like my girl doesn't even like him.
Spoken like a true Michigan man.
No, he's totally, dude, he fits Ohio State perfectly. He's just like a jackass, you know what I'm saying? But that was super surprising. I'm sure Pam's happy from OddsShark.
Yes.
They got a quarterback there, which is awesome.
She follows the Bears pretty closely.
But I think he's going to be a good quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. And then Mac Jones, who we've talked a lot about on this show.
Big Max Jones.
Goes to the Patriots. I mean... I actually don't know what the odds were on Mac Jones to go to the Patriots because he was so heavily favored to go to the 49ers. I don't know that you could have got odds. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about that marriage of Bill Belichick and Mac Jones.
Seems like a perfect fit,
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
Bill Belichick will only draft you if you are like 40 pounds overweight and just look sloppy, I guess. No, I feel like it's like probably a perfect fit for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems like he's a very cerebral guy. Benjamin Albright came on our show and told us about how great his memory is as a quarterback and everything, and how he's able to remember plays from months ago. And so that's going to be a perfect setup, it seems like. It definitely is. That Bill got his guy. It's going to be interesting to see now, because Tom Brady is a once-in-a-lifetime player.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see, how he develops. Obviously, you can't judge him after the first year or so or whatever. But and I'm sure he'll sit for as long as they can sit him,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Cam Newton is going to be a great stopgap there. But he got his guy, man. It's going to be interesting to see, now how he matures and how he compares. He's never going to be Tom Brady, but, it'll be interesting to see how they bring him along.
Yeah, you say he's never going to be Tom Brady, and I agree, but those comparisons, like it or not, they're going to be there, which is pretty intriguing. Another interesting thing about the draft was, the number of offensive players that went in the top 10. I saw some props about how many offensive players are going to go in the first round.
Yep.
How about J.C. Horn going in the top 10, your first defensive player taken? I know there were some props out there that there's going to be no defensive players in the top 10. And actually, Benjamin Albright, when he was on the show, that was one of his maybe surprises.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if it's all offensive players. He was real close.
Super close.
Yeah, but Horn going 8th, that was interesting.
It really was. And I think a lot of teams fill some needs. This is why the draft is so exciting. And just on the draft in general, it was one of the most exciting drafts I've seen in a long time. I asked Oddshark on Twitter, actually, from our account from DNP-CD Sports. I said, what are the odds someone passes out on stage? Because there was like 4 people in a row that were just going up there breathing heavy as hell.
You could see their masks
just
moving
like,
in and out. Fans get a little excited.
Dude, I can see them passing out like any moment. They said it was
plus 160.
Yeah, plus 160.
That was hilarious.
I said, dude, we should put us down for that. Yeah, Oddshark this shit, man. They're awesome. But that was hilarious. And, speaking of this, so now the odds have changed a little bit, or they might change a little bit. And you're probably going to have a little bit more confidence as a bettor now because you see how some of these teams are taking shape. You see the Patriots got their quarterback, Chicago got a viable quarterback, in my opinion. Lines are going to change a little bit, and you might feel a little bit more confident putting some money down on Chicago or New England, to at least, maybe win 8 or 9 games each team, saying something like that. Even make the playoffs. Who knows? Make sure you go to Oddshark and check that out because this is a great time to put some money down.
Yeah, man. And especially, I would say, if you're one of those teams that had multiple first-round picks and you like those picks and they address needs,
the Jets,
then go and check out those odds. Oh, the Jets would be an interesting one, man. It would. Long shot.
It really would.
Long shot.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, these rookie quarterbacks come out and they change the friggin' league and nobody sees it coming. I mean, Cam Newton took the league by storm when he came out his rookie year. And so why not? Why not throw some pizza money at something like Zach Wilson leading the Jets? Not a bad idea.
And also with Aaron Rodgers possibly changing teams, you know what I mean? Could he go to the 49ers? Could he go to the Broncos? Maybe you want to put some pizza money down, as you say, on if you're a Broncos fan, or even if you're not, if you think that might be a very likely destination, check out what kind of assets they have to get that deal done. And because you could probably get you can get the Broncos probably pretty cheap right now. I'm looking at the odds right now on Oddshark. It's 66. It's anywhere from 66 down to 20. So you see how big of a variation there are between sites. And so that's why it's important to go to Oddshark, because if you go to one site here and you get a 20-1, you know what I'm saying, there's a way better number out there. You got to make sure you're getting the best deal. Yeah. And that's why it's an incredible resource. But maybe you want to put some money down on because if they get Aaron Rodgers with that defense, shit. Yeah. That's gonna be a formidable team. You know what I mean? I would say that they shoot right up into the top 2 or 3 in the AFC. And so, hey, you might want to put some money down on them. At least they'll win their division,
Yeah, and remember, if you're out there and you're saying, there's no chance the Jets or Broncos win the Super Bowl, I'm just throwing my money away. Remember, with these future odds, you can hedge if that team makes the playoff, and you can still make money off that bet. The bet doesn't have to cash for you to make money.
Yep, exactly.
For sure.
And that's why you want to go to Oddshark, because they've got, like I said, I'm looking at the numbers vary so much between sites.
Yeah.
And even if you just become loyal to one site, you could potentially miss out on hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, as you can see right here at the line. So make sure you go on over to Oddshark. Check out all that information. This has been the betting segment for the DNP-CD Sports Podcast presented by Oddshark.
Looking forward to our conversation with Jesse Sapolu. Let's bring him in.
Our guest today is a 4-time Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. He's played with Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Deion Sanders, Ronnie Lott. The list goes on and on. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler and the author of I Gave My Heart to San Francisco, which is a great book. Me and Tony both read this prior to this interview. While playing 14 seasons and 23 playoff games with the 49ers, he won the Ed Block Courage Award. He's also a 2-time winner of the Bob McKittrick Award, Gary Niver Award, Please welcome to the DNP-CD Sports Podcast, Jesse Sapolu. How you doing, Jesse? Thanks for coming on the show, buddy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony and Chad, for having me on.
Yeah,
Appreciate
definitely. We got so much stuff we want to get to because Tony and I read your book and we thought it was fascinating. It was just such a great read to get some great insight into those amazing teams that you played on, and so much information in there. We really enjoyed that. The one question we kind of want to start it off with here is that in the book, they talk about this a little. You talk about this a little bit. You played 4 years in high school, 4 years in college, and then 15 in the NFL. Then you retired, obviously. In your book, your wife, Lisa, says that it was a difficult adjustment for you and that being around her so much was an adjustment for both of you. What was that like going from hearing 75,000 screaming fans to just one person screaming at you to take out the trash, you know? and also I want to know which is harder to block out, a tough playoff road crowd or your wife screaming about gutters? I just want to
That's one of the best questions I've ever been asked.
There you go. What's up?
You know, the thing about the 75,000 people is you don't have to listen to.
Yeah.
Good point.
There you go. You got to listen to the wife.
Touche.
Yeah.
I'm sure my wife would tell you that I don't listen to her half the time. But,
join the club.
Her voice, it was an adjustment. It was an adjustment because, you know, when you retire from the NFL, people think that's the only career you had. Mm-hmm. They don't know that was the first job you had. I mean, I played football since I was, 9, 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And I got paid later, but to me, it's the same thing. You know, you're out there committing yourself, giving your best physically day in and day out. And you hear coaches saying, you know, you got to push, you know, you got to turn it up, you know, you got to push beyond what you humanly, you know, feel you can do to win. And then all of a sudden they tell you to turn the engines off. That's a very, very difficult adjustment because, you know, every July you start dreading going to training camp. You know, you hate it while you were playing. Then you start missing it when you know, it's something that your body's used to. You know, once it comes May, June, you start thinking, I'm going to have to put my body through the ringer again.
Yeah.
You know, but it's something that was hard. It was difficult. But in your mind, that's who you are. And if you played as long as I had, it was very, very difficult for me, but you got to find other ways of replacing that, like playing golf, even though it's not the same. But that's what I did in the first couple of years.
Mm-hmm. And what are you up to now? I was checking out SapoluMenInTheTrenches.com. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, about 12 years ago, I started lineman only academy. You know, we have these specialized quarterback trainings. You know, they have elite 11s. They have all this. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great thing to do because of the technique and the feel and the reads that the quarterbacks have to do. What people don't take into account, the linemen are pretty much the same thing. You know, if you step wrong, if your balance is wrong, if your arm placement is wrong, you're not going to be a good player. So my thinking was, if the men in the front don't protect the quarterback ain't no good. So why can't we coach them and not wait for them to just get to their coach in high school? And what we found out is that the kids that we spend time with, like 10 to 12, 14 weeks during the off season, they go to their coaches in high school, and the coaches in high school are way ahead of the game because they don't have to worry about the little fundamental things that's already been taken care of at Men in the Trenches. So it's taken off. You know, some people start seeing the idea and start doing the same thing, which to me, anytime anybody has time to help the kids is a great thing. So that's what Men in the Trenches is all about.
What are some of the things that you look for in these offensive linemen? Is it, I know it varies by position, but are you looking for bend? Are you looking for agility? Are you looking for just sheer strength? What is it exactly that you value in an offensive lineman?
Well, if you're looking at general things, it's just balance.
Okay.
You know, because you know, I tell the kids, you know, you can cut my arms off and I can still play the game. Not very good, but I can still play the game. But if you cut your legs from under your knees, you're hopeless. So that's how important balance is. It's a violent game, but you still got to find a way to play violent and keep your balance. Because if you maintain those blocks, if you maintain your balance and get to the quarterback, you know, those are what separates the great players from the average players. Now, at Men in the Trenches, it all varies, because one thing I can't coach is size, right?
Yep.
That's something that God gave these kids. At the same time, I have to coach kids that are never going to go to college because they're not big enough. But you teach them the value of competing, overcoming adversity, because they can apply those traits into their life.
Good point.
After football. You guys know that.
Yep.
I mean, you still remember the few years you played in high school.
Yep.
And that bond that you have with those kids. Even 30 years from now, you're still going to talk about that when you see a teammate.
Yeah.
That's exactly
So
right.
those are the traits that can help kids, even if they become a banker, become a doctor, you can still apply overcoming adversity, being challenged. And then we have kids that are good enough to go to college. And then we've had a few kids go on to the NFL. So it's a variety of levels that we have to coach. But to me, it's just as important at every level.
Yeah.
The kid that I know has NFL potential is just as important to me as a kid that I know will never play in college, but will be a great student and will be a successful human being one day.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said about overcoming adversity. I worked with college students for 9 years, and that's something that all professionals in higher education are talking about right now. What's going on? Why are these students struggling? Talking 18 to 22-year-olds, why are they struggling so much when bad things happen, whether it's failing a test or a breakup with a boyfriend or girlfriend? It's really hard for them to be resilient and bounce back. So the fact that you're able to deal with that on a field and help teach those life lessons while doing something you're passionate about and making them better football players is pretty awesome, man. That's great.
Well, honestly, I think the kids aren't as tough as when we were growing up. Even when you guys, they don't, for me to study for a test, whether I'm tired from a practice or not, I have to walk through the library to find this information. Now that information is with a press of a button.
On your phone.
On your phone.
Yeah.
And they get
while you're in bed still. In your pajamas.
So, kids today see other people's opinions, and some people are just complaining. Some people are just ranting, right? Instead of protecting these kids from all of those influences and coach them to, hey, life is not easy. Life, and when you experience an obstacle is when you need to be at your strongest. So we can't control that anymore. I also am the founder and the chairman of the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame, which honors the greats from the past. And then my generation, and we got people like the Tua Tagovailoas who just got drafted at quarterback, Marcus Mariota.
DeForest Buckner, right?
DeForest Buckner. We have a kid that's an offensive lineman that's supposed to be going pretty high, Penei Sewell from
Oregon,
University of Oregon. So our culture, our Polynesian culture is very important to us. Humility and respect is very important to us. But with social media, we're really afraid that influence will start sneaking into our kids' psyche and mindset of identifying who they are. Because sometimes, even when I was making the kind of money I made, compared to today, there's guys sitting on the bench making the same kind of money as a Pro Bowler. But when you have that much money, you're human. The thought process sneaks into your head that I don't need people. I got all the money I need to take care of my family, and they tend to shut down advice, wisdom. But those are the kind of things that can really end your career pretty fast.
Definitely.
With the 49ers, we've had some great athletes left millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars on the table because of how they handle themselves up.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that your culture was skeptical of social media. It's something that Chad and I have talked about, the influence of social media and how it's negatively impacting, particularly the youth in our society, for sure. It's a big concern. There's a couple documentaries on Netflix about it and things like that. Have you heard at all about how, like, the psychological impact of how the social media is like a slot machine for a gambling addict, and they're using the colors to keep you online longer and some of those things as well? It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes you envy that we wish we had this capability back in the day. Like like during the 49er dynasty.
Oh,
right?
imagine that.
how popular would our dynasty have been?
Yep.
Right.
If, the 49er fans would have been on social media, the years we dominated the league.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what's the downside to it? The downside to it is all the negative influences that are around. Because, back in the day, only the professional athletes, the actors, the politicians, they had the show. They had the media forum, and we had ABC, CBS, NBC. We had each town had their 2 newspapers. That was it, right? So not everybody had a chance to share their opinion out in the open. Now, with Twitter and with Facebook, everybody has their own TV channel, man. And if you pay attention to it,
that's true.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
you get frustrated, but that means it doesn't mean we can't stop. We stop trying to protect our kids. At least we're gonna try with our parties and community.
That's awesome.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Speaking of Twitter, and also you were just referencing a little bit about soft, how some of these players are soft, or you perceive them as soft. On November of this year, you tweeted that a specific, you said that roughing the passer call against the 49ers is embarrassing. This type of football I no longer recognize. You also went on to say one of the perks of retirement, I'm sorry, but you said this is a type of football that you no longer recognize. Can you talk a little bit about that and just like how the game has changed a lot in that regard since you were playing and everything? Because it is definitely everything is geared towards the quarterback.
There's
now.
a lot of rules
you
to
can't
protect the
really
players.
touch the quarterback really at all, really anymore.
It's I'm speaking strictly from the rules that I played on.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to accept some of the rules that they've implemented, right? Like the DBs cannot be physical on the line of scrimmage. The guys can pretty much, right after 5 yards, they're pretty much free to go run their patterns. You're not worried coming down the middle to catch a slant pass because Ronnie Lott cannot do what Ronnie Lott used to do, and that's take your head off. And it was legal back then, so. And the NFL wanted more offense. They were talking about it even when I was playing, and now they finally implemented it. The one that I tweeted about, Drew Brees, and I have the utmost respect for Drew. It was a legal hit. The kid fell on the side, which is another rule I don't agree with. It's on your way down. You're supposed to find a way to turn your body and not fall on the quarterback. And this is going full speed. Well, even though I don't agree with that rule, that's what we have to live with. But the call that they made in a crucial time of the game was the kid made an effort to fall. But because Drew got hurt on that play, they threw the flag.
I think it was Contavious Street, if I remember correctly. I think was the defensive lineman, if I'm remembering correctly. And ironically, 49er fans know this. There was another controversial call on Drew Brees. How many years ago was that, Jesse? Oh, gosh, maybe about Ahmad Brooks, about 7 or 8, 9 years ago.
It cost us a home field advantage. It cost us a home field advantage with that. And the thing about Ahmad Brooks is he tackled him on this side of his shoulder.
Yeah.
And on Breeze's way down, his arm slipped up here. This is going full speed. He hit him here, and the arm slipped here because Drew was going down to the ground, and they made the call. So it's when people ask me all the time, because obviously I was Joe Center, right? Who's greater, Joe Montana or Tom? Well, we played under different rules. We played under different generations. And, Tom's a 49er fan growing up.
Yeah, he was.
For a long time, I said, because of the quality of competition and the fact that, some of Tom Brady's Super Bowls, like the interception against Seattle, right? He wasn't in the game when they won that game, right? A couple of those field goals by Adam Vinatieri to win the game. Joe's Super Bowls was either dominating against Elway and Marino, those type of quarterbacks, or we drove the ball 96 yards with 2 minutes and 45 seconds to win it. So that's where greatness comes from me. But after this past year, I got to give Tom his due. you know, as the greatest of all time.
Oh wow!
It's not something. It's not something that Joe didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
We dominated our generation, but I think Tom Brady has dominated his generation more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's the reason I'm giving it to him.
That's wild.
For him to go from one culture that's been dominating this era, go to another team and make those players better and believe in themselves, you got to give it to the guy.
Yeah,
Jesse, this is why. Go ahead.
Nobody talks about Tom Brady throwing the prettiest ball, right?
Yeah.
They always talk about the guy from Green Bay throwing the prettiest ball.
Yeah.
They always talk about Deshaun Watson being an athlete, a freakish athlete. They all, you know, but nobody judges a guy that can sit in a pocket, that can run, sit in a pocket, throw an accurate ball, and lead other people to become champions. And that's here. And that's what made I decided, you know, for me, I rather judge generations in different ways because the rules are different.
Totally agree.
We play different competition. But if you're going to put it together, I got to give it to Tom.
Yeah. Wow.
Jesse, this is why I respect and appreciate you so much, man, because reading your book, one, you're not afraid to honestly answer tough questions. You put your opinion out there. For instance, you say in the book that John Taylor was actually way more athletic than Jerry Rice. You weren't afraid to answer the Joe Montana versus Steve Young question. And I think in this day and age, and we've talked about this a lot too, Chad, it's like, if you say anything bad about Joe Biden, you must love Donald Trump. If you say anything bad about Donald Trump, you must love Joe Biden. And people can't be unbiased. And here you are, Mr. 49er, 49er legend. And I think 99 people out of 100, because of this polarized world we live in, would assume that you'd say, no doubt, Joe Montana over Tom Brady. But you're honest, you tell it like it is, you give your opinion, and you don't get caught up in that bias BS that so much of our culture tends to do today. So I really appreciate your honesty, man.
No problem. I mean, we all work hard at playing this game, and the biggest sin that I can do is be completely biased and keep the greatness away from another human being.
Well said.
I love Joe. Nobody will ever, to me, he's still the greatest to me.
Yep.
But when you look at the overall of things, if you're going to put two generations together, I think what Tom did this past year to not only win it with one team, and remember now, when we sent Joe over to Kansas City, if Joe didn't have that concussion against Buffalo in the AFC Championship game, Kansas City would have gone to the Super Bowl.
Good point.
I just watched that game a couple weeks ago.
And this is towards, you know, the end of Joe's career, right? You remember when that's the greatness of Joe Montana. You remember John Elway was named by people Mr. Comeback, right? Because he won those playoff games against Cleveland in the last drive of the game. And then we were saying, well, Joe's Mr. Comeback, he did it in the Super Bowl. When Joe went to Kansas City, they had a showdown on a Monday night with the Denver Broncos, and Joe drove the ball in the last drive to win it in Denver. That's the greatness of Joe Montana. But,
absolutely.
You know, for me, if my guy's in the conversation as the top two, I'm fine with that now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, it's different eras, so it's very difficult to judge them. But who knows what type of career Tom Brady would have had if he were playing under Joe Montana's rules and was hit a little bit more? Who knows if he'd be still playing right now? You know, that's definitely a valid question. Jesse, you were the 49ers' last pick in the 11th round of the 1983 draft. In your day, there were 12 rounds, and they were all in one day, which is crazy. Did it sound like an auction when they were doing this? When they were just like, we got Jim Kelly, we got Dan Marino, we got Eric Dickerson, Jesse Sapolu. Like, was it something like that? How did and then also, how did you find out that you were drafted? Because obviously things are different. It's not live. You know, they've got a satellite TV in your house and they're
internet,
broadcast live. How did you find out? Did the GM call you, and how did that take place?
That's exactly the point there, Chad, is we didn't know what was going on. It wasn't on
Chaos.
TV. You know, there wasn't an ESPN where you see the name scrolling under, you know, who's been picked. The draft started in New York, 5 o'clock Hawaii time.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know. I didn't get the call that I got drafted until 7:30 at night.
Jeez.
So that's waiting like almost 16 or 18 hours.
Wow.
But the funny thing is, I got a call from Philadelphia.
Yeah, and they were going to take you. Yeah, right.
Philadelphia was like 2 picks away from the present time. And then they said, "Oh, never mind. You just got picked by San Francisco."
Oh, so that's how you found out. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's wild.
That's how it is. Another team had to tell me where I was going.
That's so wild. That's crazy.
So different than today.
Yeah.
You mentioned that.
I would have been a free agent today, man.
Seriously.
Good.
Man, oh man. You mentioned that epic comeback that you were on the field for when Joe and you guys went down, John Taylor with that winning touchdown catch. That was, of course, one of the top 100 plays in NFL history, according to the NFL and NFL.com. You were on the field for 3 of those, right? So Roger Craig's high knee run, Steve Young's epic run against the Vikings, and then, of course, that John Taylor play that you referenced. Can you take one of those, Jesse, maybe the one that you remember the most vividly and clearly, and kind of walk us through that play and maybe the celebration afterwards and just what you remember from those?
Well, is the John Taylor play, was that on Monday night?
The John Taylor play was no. The John Taylor was the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl.
88. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, to cap that long drive.
Honestly, in the feelings of the moment, it is not even close. It's a John Taylor touchdown.
Nice.
Oh wow!
Now, was it the most spectacular play that John Taylor's ever made? No, but when you're looking at, we had to score. And that's another thing with the greatness of those offenses, that we could have kicked the field goal and taken it to overtime. But we said, no, we're going to be aggressive and try to put this thing to rest right now. So because of, the one of the, probably the thing that people remember most about the history of the 49ers is the Dwight Clark catch to send the 49ers to their first Super Bowl. Well, that was the NFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
The John Taylor catch that you're referencing was to win the whole thing. So was the Steve Young play, that was spectacular. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was
It was crazy. We were all thinking, there he goes again. We got to scramble to try to cover for him and try to protect him because, that was, Steve was a Michael Vick before.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I mean, he was a...
And you talked about that in your book, Jesse. You talked about that in your book real quick. And you said that one of the things that you guys had to work with him on was staying in the pocket. And he had happy feet and he was always getting outside the pocket. You guys would get pissed off sometimes. Like, Steve, stay in the damn pocket, dude. What are you doing? We're busting our ass up here. And you're doing 2 reads and taking off,
Well, one of the worst things, and we're moving from the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what Steve was going to be, right? Yeah. We knew he was good, but we didn't know what he was going to be. And there's nothing worse than thinking you're doing your job, you're blocking good, and the next thing you know, your quarterback is right on your left hip.
Yeah. This son of a bitch.
But here's the thing that I also said, that I felt, and I just retired, and I felt like if Steve didn't get knocked out in Arizona on that blitz by Aeneas Williams, Steve was so good with that offense that I felt the 49ers would have won another Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
Young, the second Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you remember back, playoff game against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, of course.
When Steve threw that ball to Terrell Owens.
Yep.
Steve would have never thought about squeezing that ball in there in his first 3 years starting for us.
Wow.
Because Steve knew he had a 4.6 speed at that time, was really fast for a quarterback. And he would have pulled it down and done the sure thing instead of following the progression of how Bill Walsh designed those offenses. But when I was watching on TV and I saw him make that throw, Steve was already good, starting to be really good during my last Super Bowl, when he threw 6 touchdowns. But when he threw that, I knew he was even better. He was still getting better. And then we lost in the playoff game to Minnesota by 1 in Minnesota.
Yep.
Heartbreaker.
I just felt like Steve would have won another Super Bowl because and me and him talked about it in Hawaii when we sat down.
Nice.
And he told me, Jess, that the thing that really changed me as a quarterback, and I truly agree with him, is is he just trusted. He trusted his instincts. If he sees something, pull the trigger. Which naturally is a human reaction. Like Michael Vick in the beginning, Michael Vick was going to take off with that ball
every time.
Yeah. And Steve was a little bit that way in his first 2 to 3 years starting for us. And that's why he was still MVP. But the Niner fans rode him hard because he never brought home the Lombardi.
And he got the monkey off his back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once Steve trusted the progression of the offense, still implement his running into it, but it wasn't the main thing. It was what he did when nothing else was happening. Then he became the Hall of Fame quarterback.
Absolutely.
What a treat to go from Joe Montana to Steve Young too. I mean, Steve Young would be a lot of franchises' best quarterback. The best quarterback in their franchise, and to go from Joe Montana to Steve Young. I remember as a kid thinking how fascinating that was.
Yeah. And likewise too. I mean, what a treat for Steve Young to walk in and have Jesse and those guys blocking for him, and to have Jerry Rice, Brent Jones. I mean, the teams were loaded in the 90s. I mean, kind of reciprocal. It works both ways. They
definitely. I definitely
for sure. Jesse, on a more sobering note, man, there's a lot of stuff in the news about former NFL players struggling with their mental health, struggling physically as well. I don't know if you saw Ryan Leaf came out a month or two ago in tears on Twitter saying, I'm sick of this. My brothers are dying and more needs to be done. Of course, I'm not going to ask for names or anything like that, but can you give us an idea from your perspective of how big of a scope is this problem? Like, you were in the league 14 years. Do you know 3 or 4 guys who are struggling in this way? Do you know 20, 30? Is it dozens? Like, from your perspective, how big is this problem of mental health after retirement in the NFL, or physical health as well after retirement in the NFL, and people not getting the resources that they need?
Well, I think the biggest challenge on the news is the mental health, with brain injuries, the more information that we've gotten. I know of 4 or 5 guys that are struggling right now, but I think one of the things that athletes, when you turn those engines off, right, is not feel vulnerable when you admit that you are vulnerable, right? Because we're so conditioned to, no, I'm a tough guy. No, it's not a problem. Well, it is a problem. And I think the NFL is so afraid of that problem that's one of the reasons why they implemented some of these rules, right? With living with the head, and even in college, when you look at tackling, targeting to me was the normal way we played the game.
That was a textbook tackle when you
did you just kick out that kid from the game? Are you serious?
Yeah, that was textbook.
But I think they're all, when I grew up in Samoa, I played rugby, right? And people used to say, well, football, you guys got protection, you got a helmet. Well, I tell the people that I grew up with and some family that still play rugby in those countries like New Zealand. I said, if have you ever carried a helmet? It's a piece of metal that weighs about 6 to 7 pounds. And when you put it on a 300-pound guy that goes full speed and you ram it into another human being, and then another human being has the same 7-pound piece of metal coming at you. At some point, there's an effect, right? And we'll get more and more information about it. I think the NFL is better at it, in trying to handle that problem. But like anything else, we still have to push. We still have to push. Is it in the back of my mind? Yeah, it's in the back of my mind because I played a long time. I joke with my friend and family. I got a Samoan nugget that I don't feel it, but in all seriousness, yeah, it's in the back of my mind because I'm one that played a long time.
Yeah, you did.
In my 15 years, if you think about it, it's in the playoffs every year. So those are extra games.
That's actually 16. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, at least 16 or maybe 18 years because, when you go to the Super Bowl, you play 3 extra games. So that's 4 Super Bowls. That's 12.
Yeah.
And then the other 12 years, the other 11 years, we were at least in 1 or 2 playoff games.
Yep.
And in those years, we used to win the Super Bowl, and they bring us back early because they used to send us over to Europe to promote a league they call NFL Europe. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we used to have five preseason games.
Wow.
Jeez.
Forgot about that.
So and the training camps back then were doggy dog,
Mhm.
you know.
I bet. With Bill Walsh.
All out, you know, pounding, right? It's not like the way it is now where all union, I think it's a great thing, you know, dictate how many times the players can really be in full pads. You know, and all of that stuff being implemented is because of this problem that you guys are talking about. I think the players of today have given us some benefits here and there, but I still think it needs to be better because the NFL is worth a whole lot more money now than when I was playing.
Definitely.
You know, I remember when we went when the league went past the 1 billion mark, we thought that was wow.
Mhm.
Well, you know, that's like 20 times more now.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, they should help and take care of some of my brothers that have given their lives to entertaining the fans and making money for the league.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And building that league, you know.
Yeah.
Or building that league. So
Absolutely.
it's something that it's a little bit of a sensitive subject to a lot of us, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. We referenced training camp there. I just want to talk a little bit about the great Bill Walsh. You guys had a unique relationship, and he had a unique relationship with his players. You said that he always kept you guys on your toes and never allowed you guys to get comfortable. In your book, you say that one day he called and your wife Lisa answered the phone and you weren't home. You came home and you asked what he wanted, and she said that he just called to say he loved you. And I want to know, was he drinking heavily or was he?
Lost my mind a little bit.
But seriously, no. What kind of relationship do you have? And then not only that, how did that make you feel to have your coach just call you just to express his feelings for you? That had to be
incredible.
Yeah, that had to be just an amazing feeling, especially for someone that you had played for so long.
I think, you know, me being an 11th round draft choice, Coach Walsh rode me hard, you know, because I wasn't expected to make the team, right? And usually the teams favor the early picks because the fans, if you cut an early pick, you know, the fans will say, well, we wasted a pick on that guy. You know? And they're giving those guys all the opportunity to make teams. You know, if they traded for another veteran, they favor that. But I came in with a chip on my shoulder that I was going to bust the system, so to speak, and just bust through that lineup. And fortunately, I think I did. But Bill was very demanding. Not only to me, you know, I just felt maybe he was harder on me because I was a late round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But Bill brought us in one day, my whole draft class, after I think the third preseason game, and said, I expect more from you guys.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, who knows what that exactly means.
Yeah.
Right? And then the very next week, he cut a third round pick, which is a pretty high pick.
Wow.
A guy named Blanchard Montgomery from UCLA.
Oof.
And I realized that, okay, that's what he meant.
Yeah. He wasn't messing around.
He made an example.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
You better go beyond doing your job. You're not going to be here.
Absolutely.
Now, the credit to Bill, even though he was hard on me, he was hard on everybody, including Joe. You know, and Joe laughs about it, and he said, "Just why you keep bringing that up, right?" Because I remember when Bill first left, right after we won that Super Bowl with John Taylor, the very next year became the most dominating Super Bowl in history.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost 2 games in the regular season by a total of 5 points. And we beat the Denver Broncos and John Elway 55-10. Joe was out at the end of the third quarter after throwing 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Dominating.
Just dominant. And people interviewed all of us. Did we do it directly? No, it was indirectly done. But we wanted to prove that it wasn't just Bill. That's how intense that relationship was. It wasn't just Bill's genius that allowed us to become champions. it was also the players, right? But now that we all look at it, it really was Bill's system, except he had the right players to execute that system, even though Joe Seifert became the coach. And they asked Joe a question, and I still remember. And Joe, what does it feel like to win the Super Bowl with George Seifert? And Joe said, it's like parking your car in the desert, and you finally get to roll the window down.
Oh, I hadn't heard that before. That's awesome.
He couldn't put it any better.
Yeah.
But I was joking with Joe about it. I said, come on, Jesse, stop bringing that up. The media's going to get a hold of it.
That's awesome.
But it was the way it was. But the thing is, our relationship, we did a little special at the end because Bill wanted to go through installation and the progression of the West Coast before Joe got old. So we all did it in shorts and shirts.
Nice.
And they interviewed Bill. And they asked him, what was one thing you regret? And Coach Walsh answered that I didn't tell enough of my players that I loved them.
Oh,
I had to hide it from them.
Oh, wow.
And so it made sense when I came home that day, and
wow.
And when my wife said, Coach called, and I'm like, the last person that I was expecting for her to say was Coach Walsh. Because I know a lot of other coaches. And she said, it was Coach Walsh called. And I said, oh, well, what did he say? And she said, he just called to let you know that he loves you.
Wow.
And I had to sit down because that's when you're trying to live up to someone's expectations and the way he demanded things. The last thing that you think about in your mind is, does this guy love me?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wouldn't be sitting here with 4 Super Bowl rings. I know that in my heart.
That's incredible.
Without that kind of demand, the attention to details, never compromise anything when you step on that field to give yourself a chance to win.
Hey, we just want to take a quick second to tell you about one of our favorite sponsors, Alfonso Murray.
Chad, go fund yourself.
What'd you say, man?
Yeah, man. Go fund yourself with disability, Medicare coverage, or life insurance coverage licensed in Texas, Maine, and Colorado. For more information, go to alfonzomurray.com. That's ALFONZOMURRAY.com.
Yeah, one of the great things about Alfonso, man, is that he doesn't just represent one company. He also he represents AIG, John Hancock, Aetna, Humana, and Cigna.
In addition to Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah. So he's going to get you something with any of those guys. If one company doesn't work out, I'll hook you up with somebody else.
Yeah, and what's cool is he's laid back. He's not pushy. There are a lot of...
Dude, there's so many life insurance guys.
It's a stereotype, but there's a lot of pushy insurance people who are just calling you back a million times, really trying to push their product on you, and he's the exact opposite of that. So if you're on the fence out there and you're like, I might want insurance, I'm not sure, I just want to talk to someone about it, Alfonso's someone who's going to get to know you personally and not push his product on.
Yeah, and he's not going to show up at your work hey man, bust out of the bushes hey man, what's up with that life insurance policy,
with the binoculars
man?
And shit.
And you're like, dude, where the hell did you come from? He's like, man, I thought he was going to get some life insurance, man. You're like, dude, settle down. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Alfonso's not like that. He's super cool, man. And I have it on good authority from someone here at Hot Pie that he's not pushy and he's got some good products.
Dude, Alfonso came in to tape his ad and to tell us what he wanted in his ad. And he actually has ended up intriguing Hot Pie employees just from the conversation. And they're now going to be, actually today, a phone call is going to be
I'm about to hit him up because I just had a son, man. I need to get some life insurance. Got to,
careful.
Get a little nest egg for my son just in case,
Never be too careful.
Yeah, exactly. So hit up Alfonso Murray. That's ALFONZOMURRAY.com.
Jesse, I'm sure you don't remember this, but 2002, you were retired. You were on the 49ers sideline, and it was my first NFL game as a fan, and it was in at Dallas. And 2 guys signed my hat that day, you and Bill Walsh, and that meant the world to me as an 18-year-old to be able to just have a very short conversation with you guys, and have you guys sign my hat, and I've still got it to this day.
That's awesome.
I've also got some mail from you as well. I used to write 49ers.
Dude, I did. I wrote Steve Young when I was a kid, and I got a photocopied autograph from him. I thought it was real.
Yeah,
for
it's really cool, man.
4 days.
So that stuff.
You guys I don't think you guys had Twitter or Instagram to reach us.
No, we didn't.
Exactly.
It took him like 8 weeks to respond. I was like, shit.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Seriously. On a more serious note, Jesse, Chad and I were talking, man. We're reviewing your career, and I already felt like, why isn't Jesse in the Hall of Fame? He damn well should be. And then when we were looking deeper before this interview and really looking into it, we're like, only 2 Pro Bowls for this guy? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so I've got a couple theories, and I want to know how you feel about these theories, right? So one theory that I have of why you haven't gotten, in my opinion, the recognition that you deserve. You've gotten a lot of recognition, but I feel like you deserve a lot more personally. Mm-hmm. One of those theories is, and it was mentioned a little bit in the book, the switch from guard to center, right? In my mind, if I'm a Hall of Fame voter, Chad.
Yeah, I look at versatility.
I'm looking at this as a positive thing that you have switched positions, you have demonstrated versatility, you have taken one for the team, so to speak, and this is a good thing, and now you should be more eligible for the Hall of Fame.
I totally agree.
But I think that is hurting you, Jesse, in this case, because people are looking at the body of work as a guard.
Which is absurd.
And he only had X amount of seasons as a guard and X amount of seasons as a center. So it kind of dilutes the sample size, if you will. That's one theory. And then the other theory that I wanted to run by you and see if you agree with, you're just a humble dude, man. You're not cocky. You're not a diva, so to speak. And I feel like with these writers who are voting, there's a sweet spot, right? Like you can't be too cocky and arrogant like Terrell Owens. It hurt him. It clearly hurt him in the Hall of Fame voting. But then I feel like if you're really humble and you're not flashy like Jesse is, he's just a no-nonsense guy who does a damn good job, that, you know what I mean, the writers may overlook you. So how do you feel about those 2 theories and those assessments? Do you think they fit? Feel free to correct me if you disagree.
Well, I just wish that the voters would take into account what you did for your team and your organization. Because if you look at it, they not only switched me one time, they switched me 3 different times. What they should look at is when they switched me after the John Taylor touchdown, it's because Randy Cross retired.
Right.
And when I switched, not only did we win the Super Bowl, it became the most dominant Super Bowl and season, probably the 49ers ever had, as far as the dominance in the playoffs going into to the Super Bowl. And then I played at center, and then they switched me back when Guy McIntyre left to go to Green Bay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is after I made my first Pro Bowl. And the saying was, Jesse, we'll give you incentives, for making the Pro Bowl the next year, even if you don't make it, but we need you to switch because we feel like it's going to help us win the Super Bowl. Well, when I made the switch, we won the Super Bowl. We brought in Bart Oates, and we brought in Bart Oates only if they got my blessing, right? Did I want to do it? No, because I was tired of being an alternate. I was like 4 or 5 times alternate at guard, and then when I went to center, I became an alternate because I kept switching back and forth. Yeah. Now, I did that all because of my team, because my thinking was, I'm not going to play so that we can celebrate me going into the Hall of Fame because that's a personal and my family accomplishment. I play the game so that we can have parades at Market Street in San Francisco. The way you can do that is to bring the trophy home. That was my thinking at the time, So now the NFL implemented a few things, like they have an old timers, when they can look into that stuff. But you guys are right. I'm not going to go out there and toot my own horn.
Well, Jesse, let me toot it for you. You just gave examples of times where you kind of took one for the team, did the unselfish thing, right? And you didn't even mention playing after open heart surgery your last year in the league. I mean, that's another, the amount of sacrifices that you made the number of them were so incredible that, there's that time that I played after open heart surgery one more year in the league. That's a footnote because there's so many examples of your unselfishness, man. It's inspiring. It really is. And I agree that the Hall of Fame should consider those things.
Dude.
For sure.
I was, when we were looking into this, I couldn't believe when you told me he wasn't in the Hall of Fame. I was like, no, dude, I had to double check that. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you don't worry about tooting your own horn, man. I know that you're too humble for that. We're going to do it for you. Chad and I are going to lead the way on that.
So you talked about your unselfishness. There are times in the NFL, and you mentioned this in your book, that you do have to look out for yourself, that you do have to be selfish, so to speak, and hold out for your money. And you did just that. And during your holdout, you were in Hawaii, and Roger Craig called you, the great running back, called you from camp. He called you, and he got Joe Montana on the phone, and Joe said to you, quote, when are you coming in, bitch? End quote. That's what he said to you. But I want to know, how good did it feel to know the greatest quarterback of all time at that time, wanted you in there, and that he also said to make sure you got your money, and Roger Craig and Ronnie Lott also said that he was proud of you for holding out and getting your money. But what did that feel like to have the backing of your teammates during that difficult time?
It was the ultimate compliment. But it was totally going against my belief system, right? But either way I leaned, I just couldn't do anything else. When you go back-to-back Super Bowls and you start at two different positions, and when they ask you to move, you're doing them a favor, right?
Yep.
They're asking you to move, and not only did you go back to the Super Bowl, it was one of the most dominating seasons in NFL history.
Yep.
And yet you're still getting paid less than guys that keep going home in December from the Atlanta Falcons, from other teams. It just didn't sit right. Even my own relatives were telling me, my own mom, when your mom tells you.
You got to listen. Mama don't pay.
Your mom tell you, my mom is, very unselfish, but when she tells you, son, you're giving your life to this team.
Yeah.
And sometimes your respect is more important than any amount of money. And the hard thing about it is that Eddie DeBartolo was one of the best owners, right?
Yeah.
Then again, it goes back to how I conducted myself. The fact that I was an 11th round draft choice, I felt like I needed to make a stand. I'm no longer 11th round draft choice. I'm your mainstay starter that has now started two different positions. You won Super Bowls at both positions that I played. At least just give me what's more money than the guys that go home every December that doesn't play for the big marbles. That's all I wanted, And my agent talked to me, and I said, I'm willing to stay home, because that's the only way we could do it. Because here's the way NFL contracts are. I can sign a 4-year contract. They can cut me after and not honor the other 2 years. So what happens if you outplay your contract, grossly outplay your contract? You can't all of a sudden tell me you got to stick to what you signed.
It's the only tool you have.
Because if it's the other way around, you're going to cut me.
They don't care.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I did what I had to do. Was I comfortable? No. Now, by the third week, because every time they play a preseason game, they flash the names of the holdouts. And people will, and I'll be laughing, thank God there was no cell phone. I mean, back then, because my phone was burning up. But so, Lisa and I went to Hawaii, relax, just to get my mind off of things. And then guess who we preseason? After we beat them 55-10, we preseason the Denver Broncos in the third preseason of the game. They're still sore from the Super Bowl. So what they did is they threw playoff type blitzes at Joe. And Joe was getting hit. He must have gotten sacked like 6 times.
Without you in there.
Hit 6 times. They sacked him twice. They hit him 6 times. And they took him out of the game, right? So after that game, I called Roger Craig because we were roommates as rookies. I called his room. I said, "Hey, how's Joe doing?" He said, "Hold up." He ran out and he told Joe, "He's on the phone." Joe came in to Roger's room, and the first thing he said, "Bitch, when are you coming in?" And after we laughed, I was really concerned. I said, "Are you all right?"
Yeah.
I'm okay. Make sure you get your money.
That's awesome.
Make sure you get your money before you come in.
That's awesome.
And then when I came in, when I walked in that locker room, Harris Barton, Guy McIntyre and I were the holdouts.
Yeah.
So Harris Barton and those guys, Steve Walsh, were working out. As soon as they saw me walk in the locker room, you should have heard bullshit. This is bullshit. You didn't take one hit in training camp. Now you're here. You're just riding me hard.
Got to skip the hard stuff.
Coming in, your nails are all manicured and everything. These guys have got like ice packs all over. You got a nice little tan going on. You got a margarita in your hand and shit. They're like, dude.
But like you guys are saying, even though they knew I was doing the right thing, you don't know how they were going to accept, because I've never held out.
Yeah.
And when I walked to my locker, touch up a few things, and then when I walked back to go to the team meeting, Ronnie Lott walked over and stopped me and said he was proud of me. Because Ronnie was that type of person.
Yeah.
You fight for what you think is right. And that gave me some real warm feelings to walk into that meeting room.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned Ronnie, and I know you said in the book, people ask you all the time about his finger, right? And, did he really do that? Did he really cut off the tip of his finger so he could keep playing football? And that story's been told a lot. What I want to know, what I haven't heard is, how did you find out about that? Like, did he just show up like after the offseason? Was it in the news? Like, did you hear from someone else? Like, when did you learn that man had the tip of his finger removed?
Well, we knew like a week later, as we were coming into the training room and the stories get around, and like if we had social media right now, that story would have been
huge.
That would have been on like TikTok. Ronnie Lott's hand would have been all over TikTok.
Like,
Snapchat.
On the way, Ronnie driving home from that game. That news would have been out. But that's what you appreciate, because something that we held onto as a team for a little while until and then they start talking to the trainers, they start talking to the doctors, and then the story was confirmed. But it was just a mindset back. It was just a mindset back then. I mean, some of the stories that I tell people now is that there are times I wasn't sure if I was going to play on Sunday, and I make fun. I said, I missed that little liquid in the end of the needle when the doctor's doing this to test the cortisone they're going to inject into me. That was the norm to me.
Wow.
Because I needed to play on Sunday. Right?
Yeah.
Now, am I feeling some of that now? Yeah, I feel some of that.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
But that was just a mindset. And it was a big deal to a lot of fans. But, to Ronnie Lott and to some of his teammates, that was just something that we needed to do.
I wanted to ask you another question about another legend, Jerry Rice. You were there to watch his maturation process. When did you know that he was going to be the best receiver of all time? When did you know he was going to be that good? And then follow-up question, did he ever invite you to run the hill, or was that more for the skinny guys and the skill position players? Because he talks about that hill all the time, and I'm wondering if you ever been.
No, he never invited me to run the hill. I was more veteran than he was, and I'm smarter. But with Jerry, when I mentioned that about John Taylor being the best athlete, John Taylor was a freakish athlete. Now, to me, that is also a compliment to Jerry Rice, because his work ethic was second to none. He became who he was, not being the best athlete. Now, that doesn't mean he wasn't.
Yeah.
But some of the things John Taylor did was unbelievable. Now, if John Taylor would have worked out the same way Jerry Rice worked out, you never know.
Yeah.
But Jerry, his ability to catch up, like even now when I'm watching practice, when I'm watching the private workouts on the NFL channel, right? You see the receivers catch the ball when they do a pro day for a certain quarterback. They just catch the ball and run 10 yards and turn around and come back.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys heard stories. Jerry Rice would catch the ball, run 60 yards to the end zone, and run back in time for the ball.
Wow.
That's what
every time.
And then Roger Craig started copying him. And what does that mean? People say, so what? Well, so what means he raised the standard of play.
Changed the culture.
It changed the culture. Absolutely. It changed the work ethic. And you talk about the greatness of Brady going from one established culture and make other people win the championship at another team. That's the kind of influence that Jerry Rice had. His work ethic was second to none, and he kind of brought everybody. And I tell people all the time, I work my butt off, to do what I do. But when we practice with Jerry and those guys, you knew that you better perform up to the highest level that you can, because that's just the standard. We called later the 49er standard. Jerry was one of the pace setters.
I asked about the hill, and the reason I ask is because I've got a story as well. Jerry Rice almost got me killed, and he doesn't know this. So for those of you who aren't 49er fans or who haven't heard Jerry Rice talk about, there's this hill in Northern California that he's trained on, and he talks about it. And he credits him sprinting this damn hill, and he's brought rookies, and they'll start puking on this hill. So I'm a big runner, so I was dating someone who happened to live 10 minutes from this hill, and I'd heard about it. I'd heard all this lore around this hill, so I said, I'm going to go check this hill out, right? So I was in really, really good conditioning shape because I was training for a half marathon at the time. And my ex, who was my girlfriend at the time, she says, hey, you go ahead without me. You go run up the hill. I know you've been wanting to do this for a long time. You go ahead, run to the top, run back down, and I'll be walking up and I'll meet you halfway and, we'll be good. I was like, thank you. That's really sweet of you. Thanks so much for letting me go. So you guys, I start running and I'm 5 minutes into my run and a freaking bobcat runs like 30 yards out, just like it didn't see me, but it sprinted across. And there was another guy. We were in California, of course, but this dude was like stereotypical, like Texan. It was a white guy with jeans and a cowboy hat. So the cat split between us, and I was shocked. And he's coming toward me, and I said, "Did you see that?" And he goes, "Pretty cool, huh?" Like it was nothing. And I'm like, so I went back. I said, "Nope, not going to the top of the hill. I'm not doing it. I've been wanting to do this my whole life, but I'm done."
Of bobcats up there just waiting to nibble on your damn.
No thanks, thanks at all. But, oh my god.
That hill is very demanding. And the story is, Jerry runs 2 laps.
Oh my god.
Before he gets going on the hill. And everybody that runs a hill with him wait until he finishes.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
And one of the funny stories is, I guess one off season, Dana Stubblefield trained over there trying to get up to the top of the hill. And it took him about a month. And when he finally made it to the top of the hill, Jerry Rice had to comfort him. He was crying like so it gives you an idea of how tough that hill must be.
Seriously.
Just the team in general, Jesse. I wanted to know like what you feel like because your guys' team is obviously considered a dynasty. It's always mentioned, and until Tom Brady, really, it was always mentioned as like the standard for excellence in the NFL, which every dynasty was compared to. Anytime you would start to see like a little mini dynasty pop up, it was always immediately compared to your 49er teams. I just want to know, from an insider's perspective, what made those teams so unique? Obviously, you guys had great players and everything like that, but you alluded to it there a little bit with the culture, the work ethic, the standard that the 49ers had that was definitely different from other teams at that time. From an insider's perspective, you were in the trenches, you were in the locker room. What was it that set you guys apart that made you guys so great?
Well, it's just a standard that we set in how we practice, how we study film. And I knew this from some of the players that were traded into us, and for them to just sit there and say, "Man, we never been through anything like this." You guys aren't shy to talk to us and hold us accountable. I remember when we won 18 straight road games in a matter of 2.5 years. That we lost some at Candlestick, but when we go on the road, because our teams were kind of built for AstroTurf. Because Guy McIntyre and myself, we're 6'3", 290, real quick, but not 320.
Mm-hmm.
So when we play on AstroTurf, we really excel. That's why we're undefeated for over 2.5 years on the road.
Yeah.
At Candlestick, when that tide is high, that field gets wet and it slows us down some to where you play into the hands of some of the bigger teams. But we won 18 straight games. We go to the New York Giants. We were leading, and we had a rookie named Dana Hall he was missing some tackles. First round draft choice. And then the Giants drove the ball and they scored a touchdown on us with about a minute 16 or a minute 30 seconds left. And then we got the ball back. We scored fast. And then the Giants got the ball back with seconds left, and they drove down enough for a field goal to kick a field goal and beat us. And part of it is because that first-round draft choice
missed a tackle.
And before Dana Hall got to the sideline, I had to hold Guy McIntyre back because he was about to choke his neck. It's a certain standard. If you remember correctly, there were rumors with the Deion Sanders and Jerry Rice at our hotel in Miami. And if you look at our hotel in Miami, there's only 2 lanes that goes into the water where our hotel is. And it's a long, like a half a mile driveway to get from the main road to get to the Hilton where we're staying at. Well, the fact that we were playing in Miami, Deion Sanders during the week had some events. He had some charity foundation events. And he had a basketball charity event, celebrity basketball game. But he left a good 45 minutes early to get back in time for curfew. So, but that little road was so busy with people coming in and out that his Lamborghini was stuck in traffic, right? He sat there for a good 25 minutes and ended up being late for curfew. Now, he was aware of the fact that he needed to get in time for curfew. He got stuck in traffic. So George Seifert was pissed when we came back the next morning for a team meeting. And George felt like, because we were a heavily favored team against San Diego, that we weren't taking it serious, right? So George was just dropping F-bombs, right? You guys meet on your own. All the coaches out, And if you guys want to F this up, not on my watch. F you. So, we were all sitting in the team meeting room. When the coaches went out, Jerry got up and went off. You MFers are here because you want to win the championship and you miss curfew?
That culture of winning.
But Deion was trying to make it, at least he made the effort in time. Then I found out, and me being the most veteran on the team, then I found out Merton Hanks missed it. Curfew, right? And those guys were like an hour and something late to curfew. Deion was like 10 minutes late. Those guys were like almost 2 hours late to curfew. So after we calmed things down, I went up to Mert and I said, Mert, what the heck, man? 2 hours late? And Mert said, yes, we're drinking with Eddie DiBarlo.
He got a free pass then, didn't he? They're like, hey, don't worry, Merton's cool, man. Merton's cool.
What am I supposed to say?
Yeah. Can't tell the owner no. Yeah.
I said, what? And Mert said, yeah, we're Eddie D, and it's all right. It's all right.
Hall
why
pass.
wasn't I there?
Yeah. But, why wasn't I there?
So that happened. And, if you remember correctly, we were expecting the Pittsburgh Steelers to come through. And it would have been a great matchup because they were at 4 Super Bowls at that time from their 70s team. And we were at 4. And we would have been a nice matchup to go for the first team to get to 5. But San Diego went to Pittsburgh and upset them. So the line opened up at 18 points.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was the biggest spread in history. It dropped down to like 15 as the week went along. But because everything was perfect and the pressure of us being so heavily favored, we needed something to just bring our concentration. And that's the way we used that situation, because all the people say Eddie cooked the hot meals, the first class breakfast for his team, the best hotels, all that. We needed something to go a little wrong for us to bring it back. And I felt that was one of the better things that happened, even though it happened indirectly that way. But that's a good story. You didn't know that story about Merton Hanks. Huh?
Yeah, that's a good story.
Some insider information, man.
That's awesome. That's
Merton
hilarious.
Hanks. That was one of my favorite players growing up.
Oh, yeah, the neck thing going on?
Dude, he had the neck like a giraffe, man. It was crazy. He always had the longest neck. I always thought he was going to get he's going to injure that thing somehow, man. But yeah, just great teams all around, man. I remember Dana Stubblefield, 97, Merton Hanks, 36. Bryant Young, yeah. All those teams. Those are some of my favorite teams as a sports fan, honestly, man. I remember watching those.
So fun to watch.
All those games. Yeah, I remember those games vividly. I remember watching the Super Bowl against San Diego and running around my house as Jerry Rice was running for a touchdown, running around my house, screaming and yelling and everything.
Ditto.
And so I remember you on those teams specifically because I always loved the offensive line play of those teams.
But here's what I tell the 49er fans, right? I said, you guys were so spoiled because you started partying at halftime.
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah. Well, in those days, Jesse, as you know, I mean, it almost felt like the NFC Championship game was the Super Bowl because the NFC had such high-powered teams. You had the Packers, the Cowboys, and the 49ers.
I used to think that every year.
Yeah.
And the Giants. You remember the Giants teams? Taylor and those guys?
Absolutely. And I remember one of the things, I think it was your wife, someone said in the book that you actually don't like to wear your 4 rings because it reminds you that you could have had 8. And I thought that was really fascinating. And I'm wondering if you still feel that way as time has gone by. Does the pain of those 4 NFC Championship losses still kind of linger on par with the 4 wins?
It lingers. But I try to turn it in a positive way. And look at it as, but it hurts. I mean, there was a time when Charles Haley and I were competing to be the first individual to win 5. When he went over to the Cowboys, and if I would have won, realistically, I could be sitting here with 6. I mean, those other, the other 2, you give it to your opponent. We needed to play our best game to win, but you remember in the '94 season. We lucked out with Dana Stubblefield, which is in the middle of the defensive line. The very next year, we lucked out. We got a kid named Bryant Young. So we put those 2 guys in the middle because when you play the Dallas Cowboys, everybody talks about the playmaker and Aikman and all this. If you can't stop number 22, you're not going to win the game. You're not going to win the game. So we stole Kenny Norton from them. And we put him in the middle to plug up the middle, right? We got Gary Plummer, who was a veteran from knew how to fill the holes. So we built our defense inside out because some of those tough losses that I had is because we were trying to outscore teams. We had a great offense, but you can't outscore Dallas Cowboys when they have a great defense and then they have an offense that we couldn't stop. So Eddie went out and we lucked out in the draft. The draft was a big thing with those 2 young defensive tackles. And we got Ricky Jackson, who was an All-Pro from that was still a very smart player to lead those guys. So, it's still painful. But hey, like I said with the Joe Montana, Tom Brady thing, as long as we're in the conversation as one of the greatest dynasties of all times, then you've done something in the league.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that they're always going to be mentioned as and you can argue. We were talking earlier about how offense, the league wants offense and everything like that. I'm one of those old school guys. I have a couple of friends of mine that we love 17-13 games or 13-6. You know what I mean? These defensive battles, field position battles, even bringing the goofy ass punter into the game. You know what I'm saying? Let him get some shine a little bit. Let him dictate the game a little bit. Who's got a better punter? You know what I'm saying? Of course, you don't want the game coming down to that, but I like the old school 13-10 battles. You know what I mean? Where one turnover changes the game. I get tired of this. I don't want to see this 48-45 shit. It's just like, dude, okay, we get it. They're just gonna. They're both teams are a sieve. You know what I mean? That gets old to me. Just seeing guys run up and down the field. I want to see some hits. I want to see a fullback. You know what I'm saying? I want to see some of that old school smash mouth football. And that was a completely different era than what there is now. So who knows how many Super Bowls you guys would have if the rules were different then and everything. It'd been crazy.
If you look at Chad, if you look at the 49er offense now, right? As innovative as Kyle Shanahan is, we're one of the few teams that still has a fullback.
Yep.
Damn good one too, by the way.
And a good one, right? Yep. So it goes to show you, to your point, everybody wants to spread the field out a little bit, but Kyle can spread the field out, but we can also play a little bit of smash mouth ball if we need to. And his innovation with a combination of both, I think it's a beauty to see. And the fact that he's young, the 49er fans need to appreciate what we have.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, last year, every team has injuries, but the injuries the 49ers suffered last year, I have never seen, even in my 15 years as a player. it was unbelievable. One key player after another, just totally devastating.
Yeah.
And hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. Because there were times I'm wondering, is it because we don't work out or we work out too hard?
You got to start questioning, is this bad luck or what's going on? Yeah, for sure. Seriously.
Yeah. But Jesse, this is an awesome interview, man. This is definitely an honor for both of us because like we said, we grew up watching you. I remember so many afternoons watching you guys play and looking forward to that game all day long. It was always the game of the week on Fox because you guys were the best team in the NFL at that time. But I look forward to those games so much. I distinctly remember watching you play, and it's kind of crazy for me as 36 years old now to be able to interview someone that I watched growing up.
36. I was still playing at 36.
Yeah, look at you, dude. Yeah. Hey, I might be able to bench like 90 pounds right now if you. I could probably run a half mile before I pass out, So you had me. Yeah, you're probably gonna live a lot longer than me. But Jesse, yeah, it was a great honor. There's so many awesome aspects of this interview. So great to get your insight and your perspective on the 49ers, the game today, your Super Bowl teams and the teams that you played on and the players that you play with. It's just you're a wealth of information, brother. And there's so many things that we didn't even get to ask you that we wanted to get to.
And all the stories you told too, man. Just great interview. Really enjoyed the time with you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace.
You guys take care.
That's Jesse Sapolu, 4-time Super Bowl champion. Dude, that's amazing. You know what I'm saying? Which is so crazy to me because like I watched this guy playing growing up and I always thought about how great these offensive lines were and everything. And so to see that and everything and to be able to talk to him and ask him some of these questions and everything, it was great, man. To get an insider's perspective, some of the most amazing players the NFL has ever seen, and this guy played with them and was well respected by them and everything. And
so humble. I mean, this guy has been underrated and I would say underappreciated his entire career. And he could be the most cocky, arrogant guy tooting his own horn, but he refuses to. Man, he wants those 6 rings so bad.
Yeah, I know. You can
hear the pain in his voice.
Yeah.
He knows he was deserving of those other 2. How about? I remember earlier in the interview when he was talking about the Tom Brady to Joe comparison.
Yeah.
That was fascinating too.
It is. And I was surprised to hear him say that he thinks Tommy is over Joe, because you wouldn't, like you said, you wouldn't think that you'd be tooting the horn for the guy that you play with and everything like that. Instead, he's got enough perspective and he's not too proud to say that he thinks Tom is. And I thought Tom Brady was for a while, for the last 2 Super Bowls. But when he won it in Tampa Bay this year, that was one of the most remarkable things I've seen in sports in my lifetime, to see a guy that, you hear all that for 20 years. It's the culture, it's the system. He's a system quarterback. It's Belichick and everything like that. For him to go like create a satellite organization, so to speak, and to bring all these guys in a year, to take a team that hasn't made the playoffs in almost 10 years and been relevant for 20 years. And to instantaneously turn them into a Super Bowl team is unbelievable, man. And so that was kind of cemented his legacy for me. Yeah, if the other 6 didn't, you know what I'm saying, that definitely did.
Absolutely. Sure. How about I'm going to pour us a drink if you don't mind. How about the Merton Hanks story that he told? How good? I want to Google that, because is that public? Has anybody heard that story before? That was incredible.
Dude, I don't think so. I've never heard that anyways. It's awesome to get some insider information about Merton Hanks too, man. I always wonder what that guy was like.
I wonder what he's up to now these days. We should reach out to him.
Yeah, we should, man. Definitely.
But he he was drinking with the top guy in the organization before the Super Bowl, and he had a hall pass.
You said it's a hall pass
for why he was late.
It's a hall pass.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
And Dion was getting all this hell for being a few minutes late.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy as hell. They're like, you should have just said you was with Eddie D, man. You'd have been good.
Nothing
would have happened.
That's the excuse card right there. Sure.
While you're doing that, I'm going to plug Jesse's Twitter. So find Jesse on Twitter. He is at Jesse Sapolu, JESSESAPOLU. Also, SapoluMenInTheTrenches.com is his website where you can find some information about the program that he's doing for offensive linemen, teaching them the game. For us, our Instagram is at DNP-CD Sports, Twitter at DNP-CD Sports. We're DNP-CD Sports on everything on Facebook as well, dude. That's a big. I'm gonna take a sip of this actually, dude.
No rush on it, brother.
No. Yeah, this is still awesome. They hook all of our guests up and everything.
Yeah, man. So this is their gin right here.
Yeah,
that they're having, and I've only had this in a cocktail.
All right, Jesus Christ, it's good. It's nice and smooth. I'm just not a liquor drinker, as you can tell by the look on my face. You know what I'm saying?
I'm a fan. Should we tell him, Chad? Yeah, let's tell him, man. In a couple episodes, we're going to have Randy Cross, one of Jesse's teammates. He briefly mentioned Randy earlier in this interview. So, look forward to that one.
He did. And what's awesome about that, too, is that he's also a commentator for CBS Sports, a guy that I've watched for many, many years call games. When I told my dad that we were going to get this guy, he knew him immediately and was like, oh, yeah, that's going to be a good interview. So it's going to be interesting to hear about his playing days and then also talk about him as a broadcaster as well. Two totally different careers.
He's got a podcast now as well. He was on the field for the catch, by the way. That is going to be fun.
Wow, dude. One of the most, if not the most iconic play in NFL history.
Yep, that's going to be a lot of
that's
fun.
going to be great.
Sure.
We want to tell you, take a quick second to tell you about OddsShark. OddsShark is your source for the latest odds from leading authorities, expert editorial content, and detailed matchup picks. If you're looking for statistics and trends for an upcoming game, OddsShark has that too, and it is absolutely free.
That's right. In-depth expert analysis, stats, numbers, and trends to help you make the sharp pick. So whether you want to check out the NBA playoffs coming up, or you want to look at some hockey odds, or you want to look at those future numbers that Chad and I were talking about earlier today, or anything in between, head on over to OddsShark and start thinking like a shark today.
Yeah, we've got the NBA playoffs coming up. Go ahead and place a bet on it. I'm going to put some money down. Going through OddsShark, going to put some money down on the playoffs this year.
These 7-game series are always fun because you can bet on the whole series or you can bet on the individual games.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting this year because it's not going to be home court advantage. It's going to be a big deal. If there are teams that allow fans in the stadium, it's going to be a couple thousand. It's not going to be huge.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put some money on a couple teams for the NBA playoffs this year. Looking forward to it. So I just want to thank our guest, Jesse Sapolu. We want to thank all of you guys for watching and listening out there. Please leave us a review. Check us out on social media. We can be found at DNP-CD Sports on every major platform. Tell your friends about the show, please, man, because we've got some awesome guests coming up that we're really, really excited about. Some guys that we can't confirm just yet, but a really exciting lineup we got coming up, Tony.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thanks again for listening. Please tell your friends. We'll see you guys next week on the DNP-CD Sports Podcast presented by OddsShark.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home on the web at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.